Each year, the students of the graduating class select a speaker who they feel has inspired, influenced, or significantly contributed to their education during their time at Galway. This year, the class of 2015 selected Galway Junior Senior High School chemistry and physics teacher and New York State master teacher, Mr. Kristen Darlington.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the warm welcome. I would like to thank the school board and all the administrative staff for allowing me to speak here today, and a special thanks to my mom and dad who are also here in the audience. These kids know I talk about my parents a lot in class, so it's nice to have them here. I can't tell you how honored and humbled I am to be asked to give this speech by these kids here today. So to the class of 2015 sitting on this stage, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'd like to dedicate this speech to a teacher who went out of his way to be my mentor when I was in grad school in California. Without this teacher, I can confidently say I would not be standing here today giving this speech. So this speech is dedicated to Mr. Preston Boomer of San Lorenzo Valley High School in Felton, California, who taught physics and chemistry for 56 years at San Lorenzo Valley, and whose career I will continue to emulate until the day I'm forced to retire. Boom, if you do get to watch this, thank you. A couple of months ago, when Jenny Metzger asked me to give this speech on behalf of her class, I said, Jenny, you know there's no way you can afford my speaking fee. But for those of you that know Jenny, she's right over there, you know that she's no one to be trifled with. So I got to work. And when I was writing this speech, I spent a lot of time watching commencement speeches on YouTube that were each in their own way historic. This one won't be. Because for those of you that know me, you know that I'm not someone who takes himself particularly seriously or who really likes talking about himself at all. So when I decided that what I should be doing in this speech is talking about the story of how I somehow fumbled along to end up standing in front of you today, it was a bit jarring for me. That said, I'm just going to go for it and hope that my story will end up doing some good for someone out there who might be listening. When I was 18 and fresh out of high school, I was just like these kids sitting up there. I was still driving my mom's old station wagon. I was nervous, unsure of myself, temperamental. See the parents in the audience nodding. I was awkward, moody, and my students are sitting up there saying, Mr. D, that sounds like you now. But what I remember the most about being 18 was being constantly overwhelmed with the question, what am I supposed to do now? My own first attempt to answer this question was to enroll as an 18-year-old infant into the mechanical engineering program at Union College in the fall of 1998. I didn't have a good reason for choosing mechanical engineering as my major. I took AP Calc and AP Statistics in high school. I did well. I loved my physics class. I became fascinated with everything written by Carl Sagan. My science grades were strong. I liked cars. The science and math I figured I could do, and I really wish I could tell you I had a better reason for signing up engineering, but it was really because of vanity. You see, when I was growing up, I had always heard that engineers were members of an exclusive intellectual group. They were the ones who survived the really tough classes in college, and they were the ones that could really think and solve problems. As you can imagine, as an 18-year-old, the idea of people describing me in this way was pretty appealing. Union's ME program was, as all engineering programs are, hard, really hard, and I wasn't up for it. When the veneer of being an engineer wore off, and it did wear off quickly, I struggled. And for the first time in my academic life, I was demolished into dust and I was on the verge of failing out of school. My work ethic was poor, my enthusiasm was poor, so I did what many engineering majors do and quit my major. I remember doing so over Christmas break one winter, and I remember being totally overwhelmed just as I was when I graduated high school. I remember again asking myself the question, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I did what many young kids do when they wash out of an engineering program. I went to the greener, easier pastures of a degree in economics. I hear the engineers in the crowd saying, I know this story. Economics had some appeal to me. It had some math in it. It involved money, which I was into. And at the time, my plan was to get a job in business, which of course is vague in itself because pretty much everyone who doesn't work for the government works for a business of some kind, but none of this occurred to me at the time, so I chose econ anyway. How did it go? Well, as you know, I do teach high school physics and chemistry. So, needless to say, economics wasn't the best choice in the end. Despite the reputation of being much easier, I struggled almost as badly in economics as I did in engineering. I enjoyed some of my classes, but most of them were a total slog. The low point, and I really wish I was making this story up, was when I went to one of my professor's office hours one day and asked for help on an Excel project that I was working on with my good friend Kyrie. I handed the floppy disk to my professor, and for the kids on stage that don't know floppy disks, well, they weren't exactly floppy, were they? In the physical sense, it was just confusing, I know. They were about the size of a coaster. You'd put them into your computer, and your files would be read off this not floppy disk. So it was just like getting a file from an email, except that when you wanted to email someone your file, you had to go to the post office. Anyway, I handed the disk to my professor. She pops it into the computer, and she asked me which file I was working on. And at that point, my heart sank. She turned to me. She had this wry smile, and she asked me, is this the one right here? And I said, yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Because I had named the file, I really hate this stupid class. I wish it wasn't true, but it's true. So my poor partner, Kyrie, who was standing next to me, turned to me, and he gave me the look only a mother could give an infant child who just threw their spaghetti dinner at the wall. And I deserved it. So needless to say, I didn't do particularly well in that class. And Kyrie, if you're out there to this day, I'm very sorry. I did finish the degree. I finished in 2002, and I found a job at a business where I had the potential to make a lot of money, and it didn't last because I was horrible. My work ethic was poor, my enthusiasm was poor, and my boss did the right thing and fired me 6 weeks into my time with the company. So there I was, and you're probably sensing a theme here. 23 years old, just graduated from college, unemployed, living at home with my parents. Thank you again, Mom and Dad. Just fired from my first job. And what I remember the most was being constantly overwhelmed with the question, what am I supposed to do now? Shortly after I was fired from my business job, my friend Brian suggested that I try my hand as a substitute teacher. Teaching high school didn't work out for him, although he thought I might like it, so I gave it a shot. I had never really considered teaching before, typically listening to the people who say, well, you'll never make any money doing it. But I knew I loved physics, and more often than not, on Saturday nights, I found myself in the science section of a bookstore, reading Sagan and Hawking rather than going out with my friends. I have some friends here today that will attest to this. I figured it would be worth something. So I got myself signed up to be a substitute teacher at a bunch of school districts in the capital region. And I found out very quickly that even in substitute teaching, that when I was able to help kids learn, teaching was much more fun, satisfying, and fulfilling than anything I had experienced in the past. It didn't take very long before I decided that what I needed to do was become a physics teacher. Now, starting with a degree in economics and ending up with a teaching degree and teaching certificates in physics and chemistry took me through 7 different universities, including getting a master's degree at UC Santa Cruz. But really, it was pretty easy. My grades were high, my enthusiasm was high, and the long road that led me to be standing in front of you today never really felt like work at all. Soon after I started teaching high school full-time, some of my friends began to ask me what it's like. I remember one of my buddies asking, "Doesn't it get boring teaching the same thing year after year?" My answer, of course, was no way. For me, teaching is like being able to tell your favorite stories over and over again to a different audience that's excited about what you have to say. But more than that, the real joy in teaching is when a kid tells you that you've helped them better themselves, that you've taught them to value hard work, and this does happen to me somehow, when a kid tells you that you've altered the path of their life by inspiring them. And for that reason, to this day, I can honestly say that choosing to be a high school teacher is one of the best decisions I've made in my life. So now let's take a step back and ask the obvious question. Why did I fail so badly? Why did I fail so many times trying to figure out what I was supposed to do with my life? Well, I can tell you very plainly, as challenging as it was, student teaching at an inner city school in California, where I was one of the only native English speakers in the classroom, was miles beyond anything I had experienced in college pursuing vanity as an engineer or money in economics. Working late into the night grading papers for a teacher's salary has always been much more fulfilling than the potential of a six-figure paycheck at a business job. Because the fact is, you're really only happy with what you do if you do it for the right reasons. In my case, I had failed because every time I chose a career, I chose it for the wrong reasons. I had chosen vanity in pursuing engineering, and I had chosen money in pursuing economics and business. It was only when I stopped chasing dollars and vanity and when I started to help other people that I was able to find happiness. What I had figured out was that the only measure of wealth in your life that's important is the degree to which you can make other people's lives better. So back to these graduates. And frankly, to anyone else who's in the audience listening, what now? What are you supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to choose. I chose to devote my life to help train the next generation of scientists and engineers to help solve the world's problems. That doesn't have to be your choice, but for all the injustices in this world, for all the basic things that so many people everywhere are lacking, the last thing you should choose is a career that only enriches yourself. What you're supposed to do is pick something. You're supposed to find a problem in this world that you're passionate about, something that affects people, and you're supposed to dedicate your life to solving it. Make the decision that you, not anyone else, you are going to be responsible for making the lives of the people around you better. What you're supposed to do is go all in and do it for the rest of your life. And I promise you, you will not fail and you will be happy. Whether you're decades invested into a career that really only helps enrich your own life, or you're at the beginning stages of your career, like these kids behind me, walk away from vanity, walk away from money, and focus on something that's really important, which is helping each other. Because I can tell you, from my own life, you don't find happiness when you pursue vanity. And the path to happiness is not paved with $100 bills. Happiness is helping each other. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darlington.